Welcome back to another episode of On the Beaten Track with me, your host, Rihanna. Thank you so much for returning after our last episode where we did a deep dive into the autism spectrum disorder and our son's diagnosis. In that episode, I said that we'd be doing a deep dive into the gut and look at what the research says, where we got to understand that Enzo had a problem, what we did and what we are still doing, and the lessons learned. Reflecting on episode 1, there's some learning for me. I really love watching myself back. It's really fun. It's not. But the one thing I did not say on that episode, that if there's anything you feel I skirted over or you need a deeper dive into, you need some more understanding, please don't hesitate to contribute in the comments and I'll get back to you, whether it's on the socials or an expansion on an episode. I am doing these recordings a little bit far in advance so I can do the research, but please just continue to contribute and we can only get better. By we, I mean me. After our deep dive into autism spectrum disorder and our diagnosis journey, I felt the next most impactful portion on this journey has been taking care and improving Enzo's gut health. It's been exciting, weirdly exciting, with big learning curves, and we're still learning every year, and understanding how his body functions and about bodily functions in general that I didn't need to know. And I'll be sharing with you today. Food has been a medicine for Enzo and has played a massive role for us in managing and modifying challenging behavior. I'm not understating it when I say that. When we started going through this process and we decided to put him on a diet, or which diet or eating plan, or like I call it, the gut healer, there was an associated book that I read, which was Breaking the Vicious Cycle. It really was great at making me understand what was happening in the gut, what was happening in his body, and what we were trying to heal. So I've tried to put that all together in an easy, digestible way for you, but I have taken some direct quotes off the Breaking the Vicious Cycle website. So I'll link the website in the show notes, and in actual fact, on the website, there is an autism chapter that you can just read for free. So some of this will be coming from that. So before we get into our story, let's see what the research says. According to Breaking the Vicious Cycle website and its autism and the gut section, it states, research shows that more than 50% of children with autism have gastrointestinal symptoms, food allergies, and maldigestion or malabsorption issues. This is by Carol Horvath. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. And I will link some of his work or papers in the show notes, so if you want to kind of look at everything or some of the things that I found interesting reading through. So 50% is quite a lot. So why is this and what is the effect? So when we look at how the gut imbalance affects digestion, and I hope you can't hear my son screaming, especially in autism, I first want to look at what a healthy system looks like and what's going on, okay? So in a healthy digestive system, the stomach and small intestine contain only a small number of microbes because stomach acid and digestive enzymes keep them in check. Most of the body's helpful bacteria live in the large intestine or colon, where they help break down food and support the immune system. Okay, so that's the healthy system. But when the natural balance is disturbed by things like antibiotics, illness, or poor diet, The unwanted microbes can grow too much and even spread backwards into the small intestine and stomach where they don't belong. They just shouldn't be there. This can lead to a condition called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth or small intestinal fungal overgrowth, which both just does not sound like it's a good idea, right? So antibiotics is probably the one thing that sets us back majorly. And we've had to have him on antibiotics twice in the last 3 months. It really is like a reset on behavior and not in a good way. So we always are very careful about giving it to him. And unfortunately, over the last couple of months, it's just been bad. We do recover easier since he's been going through the gut healing, but it's still pretty impactful. And as I go through a lot of the stuff with Enzo, you'll find that his gut is quite sensitive, and he's still quite sensitive when we look at how quickly he reacts to things. So now we know that those microbes are overgrowing, they're growing backward, they're not where they're supposed to be. So what happens when they're there? What happens when they invade the small intestine? So when these microbes, such as bacteria, yeast, fungi, and viruses even, they will compete for nutrients, making it harder for your body to absorb them. So we're speaking to that malabsorption. They produce waste and toxins that irritate or damage the intestinal wall. In the case of yeast like Candida, which every woman should know about or from Candida, they can release enzymes that break into the gut lining and make it leaky. And here's our first technical term that Rihanna hopes she will say right. They damage the microvilli, which are tiny finger-like structures that help digest and absorb food. Okay, doesn't sound good, any of it. So if you look at the Breaking the Vicious Cycle, which is a specific carbohydrate diet, they really focus on carbohydrate absorption. So the last step in digesting carbohydrates happens on the microvilli, which has now been damaged. When those are damaged, your body can't finish breaking down complex carbs. Only simple sugars, macrosaccharides, which don't need further digestion, can be absorbed. When complex carbohydrates stay undigested, well, what happens? They draw water into the intestine, causing bloating or diarrhea. They travel to the large intestine, where microbes feed on them, grow even more, and make the imbalance worse. So most gut microbes rely on carbohydrates for fuel. So leftover carbs encourage the growth of harmful microbes, further disrupting digestion. Okay, so what the research says, especially in autism. Okay, this is from the same research I spoke about earlier. A study found that 43% of children with autism had low levels of enzymes needed to digest carbohydrates. Ongoing malabsorption weakens the digestive system and can lead to wider health issues across the body. For individuals with suspected malabsorption, especially those on the autism spectrum, addressing these digestive issues early can help and prevent long-term damage. Okay, so the bottom line is that when the gut is out of balance, undigested carbs feed harmful microbes, damage the gut lining, and make it harder to absorb nutrients. So you're really not getting the good stuff into your body. This creates a cycle, breaking the vicious cycle, you see what they did, of poor digestion and worsening health. Breaking the cycle by identifying and treating malabsorption can be a crucial step to improving both gut health and overall well-being, particularly in people with autism. So you see how that all comes together. So I hope that was as concise as I could be, but let's just make sure we're all on the same page. So we say is that the whole digestive system is overrun with bugs, essentially, and they prevent and hamper all the good stuff being pulled into the body and makes breaking down your foods impossible. So the balance in the Force, yes, I used a Star Wars reference, is disturbed and needs to be restored. Some people state that the stomach is the second brain. Hangry is a great example of this. Or when you overeat, you just really have fuzzy brain, or you just really can't function until you get some food in your body. The gut-brain axis is a statement that you'll hear a lot when people talk about, sorry, my son is tapping on the window. The gut-brain axis is a statement you might come across when you look at this, if you want to look at it. The gut and the brain are deeply connected. What happens in the gut can shape emotions, behaviors, and thinking, and vice versa. Okay, so when one is out of whack, you find, and that's what we found. So our main benefit, as I stated, was through using food as medicine has been predictable behavior and some other things. Without the brain being cloudy or the body being numb, what soon came was awareness of temperature, of pain, cognitive ability, eye contact. Enzo's always been really good about giving eye contact, but I don't actually know how else to say it, but it was almost glazed over. And that's actually been one of the tellers for us when he's having a bad time or when he's sick, is his eyes, because it does change. Especially with a nonverbal kid, it becomes so important that you have something that's giving you an indication when something's wrong. It has become such a massive part of Enzo's life, and when it's disturbed, like it has been now that he's been on the antibiotics, inevitably, okay, we knew it was the medicine, but when anything goes out of whack, we knew something that is eaten, something that's absorbed through his skin, which it has happened in the past. It has been reported that children with autism and digestive problems become overly sensitive to light, sound, and touch. Enzo's got a light sensitivity, definitely. You really couldn't go into a supermarket because they always have those fluorescent lights, and that's been getting so much better. Well, I've shared with you the research and what I really took out of breaking the vicious cycle. I'm going to now share our story and how we got to our current state where we are. You'll notice I always reference consultation with experts, but also use your knowledge of your kid to guide you. That's really helped us as we've seen so many people over the time that we've been on our journey. We keep his gut in semi-working condition by trusting our gut. See what I did there? So this is how we got there, how we do it. I'll tell you how we manage it daily. I'll talk about our story, how we found ourselves in this position, what we do weekly or bi-weekly for Enzo, what's his routine, what are kind of the whoopsies or learnings, and I'll pepper them through, but kind of consolidate them hopefully at the end. So, yeah, let's continue on this journey. for the diet and how we got there. In 2016, we were looking at all strategies and assistance to help Enzo. Sasha's colleague who sent us the recommendation for the dark then recommended Jenny Buckle and Reach. So Jenny is someone that we've worked with now since Enzo was 5 years old. She helps us and supports us through our journey. I know there was some controversy with Jenny a couple of years ago, but we've just felt really supported, and we always make the final decision, but we come together as a group. As I said, we have the E-team. So the E-team meets once every 6 months, or if he's going through a bad patch, we will... sorry, he's just staring at me. He's hilarious. If we're going through a bad patch, we'll call on Jenny and then we'll kind of have a chat around it and see what we might be missing. And you'll find just having those chats sometimes, that's how we've learned to have those chats with each other, because we used to have them with her, and kind of just do a track back on where things could have gone wrong, what are we missing, and we've had those many a times. So with us, we come together once every 6 months and we decide what's the next step, what's the next aim, what's the next goal for Enzo, is there anything that we need to change. Team members come and go, tutors come and go. Some of the team from a therapy perspective has come and gone, but that's essentially the nucleus that kind of looks after or strategizes, why did that feel so hard, around Enzo. So when we started with Reach in 2016, they looked at him holistically. They did an assessment to kind of see where he was at. And this included therapies, supplementation, and medical review. So this three-prong approach, which I think they still do, but this was what we went through initially, okay? So one, we focus on getting him individual assistance daily, with somebody working with him intently and intensely. So Enzo at this time was at autistic play school. So we just added a tutor or assistant with him who would be with him, pick him up, take him to school, bring him back, do therapy with him either in the school or at home, and really taking care of in his individual needs. The girls get a sheet that they work off of what the goals for that week or 2-week period is. But we really wanted him to start getting that one-on-one attention quite intensely. And he's had a tutor ever since then. I think we've had four tutors. Why do I think that it's more? Okay, we've had 4 tutors. Enzo continues to go to school. He's not there for academics. He's there for socialization, okay? He's been in grade R1 forever. But he's there just to be around kids, learn some social cues, hopefully, how to play with others. Because initially it was quite hair-raising taking him out. He didn't really understand it because he was in his own world and he should control everything. So that socializing, and it sounds like such a weird word, but social interactions really has been helpful for us when we get into a situation where we need to socialize with people. He's not always comfortable in those situations. Like I said, when he's ready to go, he goes, but he's not as aggressive as he was then. So two, Jenny spoke about the diet. We felt that he didn't show any gut dysfunction, but she just said that, look, kids on her program has been on the diet and it has, got some great results. So we decided, okay, we'll start the diet immediately. I mean, it's food, it's not invasive. So this was called the specific carbohydrate diet. The third part was to get a medical assessment from our favorite. If you've ever dealt with her, she's amazing. Dr. Louise Lindenberg. She gets so excited. She is so helpful. She is so knowledgeable. It's just an absolute pleasure to deal with her. So to get our gut test done with her and work out supplementation. When we met with her, we spoke through gut dysfunction. Enzo didn't display any other signs according to us except a very high pain tolerance. We decided to do the test, which would be poo and wee, which would then go to the States. That would take a while to get back. Great for me. My child was in nappies. I don't think there's many times in my life I've said that. But it was easy to kind of get samples from the poo perspective. The wee, I just couldn't get right for some reason. I messed it up so many times, then sent it off to the States. They then called and said, sorry, your sample was too small. Then eventually figured out you could get this, like, for anybody wondering, you could get this little bag that had like sticky stuff around, so you can put it and then catch the pee. And eventually got there. So the whole point of doing the test was that we could kind of baseline where Enzo was at, understand where the gut was at, if there's anything that we needed to do. But we do the diet in the meantime. Like I said, if there is any bad bugs in the gut, this would sort them out and would be beneficial. Little did we know. Yes. Okay. So before I dig into the diet, we tried. I wanted to mention others that have worked for autism individuals. So what I'll do is I'll talk about the diet, the goal, what foods aren't allowed, any evidence, and cautions, obviously. For me, it was very important as we went through this process that, first of all, I had read the book, so I had a lot of knowledge. We had assistance and we had somebody helping us through the process to understand. And then secondly, it was that as the tests came back and we understood more, there's always a gap from a supplementation perspective with these that you need to fill. So that's always very important as you go on these journeys. Do not do it on your own. I really felt was best when we were guided through the process. So the first one is gluten-free and casein-free. This is supposed to reduce gut inflammation and improve behavior and digestion. So the foods that are not allowed here is wheat, barley, rye, dairy, processed foods with gluten and casein or casein. There's been mixed evidence, some improvements in sensitive kids, and this may cause nutritional gaps, as I spoke about, when it comes to calcium and vitamin D, so it might be difficult to maintain. Then you have keto. I think a lot of people are very aware of keto. It supports brain function, reduces seizures, and improves energy stability. What's not allowed is grain, sugar, starchy veg, and most fruits. It's promising early data for epilepsy and some behavioral improvements. Should be supervised by a doctor and can lack fiber and nutrients. Caution. Then we have gaps, which some of this, as it pertains to Enzo, we've actually tried some of the foods that are on here. So this is to heal the gut lining and rebalance the microbiome, sorry. So things we've also used is bone broth, and then sauerkraut and stuff like that, which we made, which is not so easy to make from scratch. Oh no, it's not. So what's not allowed is grain, sugar, processed foods, and most dairy during the early phases. So this has more anecdotal evidence, only popular in holistic circles. It's a complex, multi-phase, and challenging without support, which also was really, wasn't as complex, but it was also multi-phased. Then you have yeast-free, which is to reduce the yeast and the candida overgrowth and improve gastrointestinal symptoms. So you can't have sugar, bread, alcohol, vinegar, fermented foods, mushrooms, yeast products. There's limited clinical evidence. Some families report benefit, often used with antifungals, restrictive with unclear long-term benefits. And then we have paleo, which is also quite widely known. It reduces inflammations and supports the gut or immune health. What's not allowed is grains, legumes, dairy, processed foods, refined sugars. This is not specifically for autism, but generally supports gut and immune health, so it made the list, I guess. May be hard to maintain, risk of over-restricting important foods. So there's something that I want to mention and acknowledge. We hate that word. But it's so perfect in this context. So there's one thing I want to acknowledge is that autistic kids, a lot of them have sensitivities or sensory issues with food. So you'll find sometimes that kids will only eat one or two things. You have neurotypical kids that have the same problem. So some of these diets become really hard because you're taking quite a lot of things away to try and heal the gut. And some of those things are sometimes the only things that your kid eats. So I understand that it is very difficult. I've heard or seen parents go through this and try their utmost. I know how rewarding it is when their child actually eats something that they make. I think every parent can relate to that. But when kids have massive sensory or sensitivities with food, it can be really hard to introduce food or just kind of go through this process. So I really wanted to say it's not easy for kids that are like that. So I understand that the diet is not always the easiest route to take. Our boy loves to eat. He eats everything, including his poo. And that might be a little TMI, but he has none of those problems. He eats what we give him. The only things he doesn't eat is lettuce and lemon. Yeah, I think he's rejected lemon. But lettuce, not a fan. He's a good eater. The only thing for us when we were going into this gut healing, because obviously there's a detox or there's stuff that's going to be happening and he's nonverbal. So how were we going to do this diet with him? And yeah, that was fun. So getting into the diet, my husband decided that we should join him on the diet because he's nonverbal, and if we're kind of feeling crappy and he's moany, at least we'll have an understanding of why this is happening. Okay. So I'll explain to you that process. But so what is specific carbohydrate diet? Like I said, it's kind of in the name. It's really focusing on the carb absorption. So what is this diet detox or gut healer? I really like that. I think that needs to be a thing. The specific carbohydrate diet was developed by Elaine Goshok. Her daughter was diagnosed with severe ulcerative colitis. Look at me. At the age of 4. So she kind of went through that process and wrote this book called Breaking the Vicious Cycle. So SCD, as it's, everybody loves an acronym, has helped people all over the world manage symptoms of Crohn's disease, IBS, celiac. It's actually something that I know it's quite widely used for. And many other ailments rooted in the digestive tract. Some of them I'm just not brave enough to try and pronounce. Foods that are not properly digestive, such as grains, sugars, and starches, and processed foods are banned on the diet as they cause bacterial and yeast overgrowth, which I spoke about earlier, irritation of the small intestine, and challenges with food absorption. So, you really want to limit those. And if you, like our child, you will see an absolute direct correlation with him having those things and having disruption in his behavior. So the diet is designed to restore gut flora and stop the vicious cycle of bacteria and yeast overgrowth by eliminating food they feed on, which I just mentioned, thereby allowing the intestinal tract to repair and heal. So this is the bad bugs out, repair, heal, and start introducing some of those foods back in. ACD started by following an introductory diet, which consists of a limited selection of foods. I'll speak through that some more. After that, you start introducing more foods. Sometimes you'll find that you're just having vegetables a very specific way to make them easily absorbed. Raw fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds are added to the diet later once the healing begins, and then you can introduce the illegal foods once the gut has healed. Enzo is not allowed grains, and by that I mean rice, wheat, corn, oats. No processed food, which I mean, can it be a bad thing? No starchy vegetables like potatoes. No canned vegetables of any kind. Don't think we've even used any kind of frozen veg, so no frozen veg from our perspective. No flour, no wheat flour, more like it. No sugar, no sweeteners other than honey, which we do use. No milk products. And there is quite a lot of recipes in the book, which is nice. So there's recipes on how to make things so that you're really using all the good stuff and you're not using any of the illegal foods. There's even how to make a yogurt, homemade yogurt, fermented in 24 hours. So There's a lot of help in the book itself other than what's happening. So it has all these recipes that you can use throughout, which was really helpful for me because somebody was like, well, if I don't use flowers, what am I doing with it? And there are really some good stuff in there. The first portion is just broiled meat. I didn't even know you could not broil meat. I didn't know this was the cooking technique. Um, and there's no alcohol and no coffee. I think in the first portion, I don't even think there's any veg. I think you're just eating a lot of protein. And the no coffee was just the death of me. I was the weakest link. I'm so sorry. We started, and while Enzo and Sasha were having similar side effects, I was just like outside of, I was the one on the outside looking in, not having the same symptoms or side effects. I did break on the coffee quite early, so probably why I didn't have the same effects. But I think like for the introductory part or into phase 2, I really wasn't having the same symptoms. Sasha fared so much better. He was a champion, and let me tell you, it was brutal. It was brutal. That poor man, but that poor boy, because we wouldn't have known what was going on if Sasha didn't stay on the diet with him. So luckily, he was such a trooper. And I remember once he could eat fruit, a banana, and he loves bananas. After about a week on the first part of it, he was so excited about having that banana. He ate it, and he then proceeded to feel sick and nauseous for the rest of the day. And Enzo had the same reaction. So I feel sorry for him, but I'm so happy we knew what was going on with our son. So each phase introduces a set of food. It has 4 phases. After a set number of months, you can start introducing illegal foods and look at the effect. His gut was so damaged, we had to stick to bare bones for a lot longer than 6 months. But I mean, not when I say bare bones, I'm not talking about phase 1, 2, 3. I'm talking about, you're stuck kind of in phase 4, and you're not starting to introduce any of the illegal foods. But I will talk through what happened when we did. So Enzo's bad list, which would or could be allowed on the diet, but just was bad news bear for him. Apples and grapes. I don't know if you guys have heard of autobrewery syndrome. So it's a rare condition where the body produces alcohol, ethanol, through the fermentation of carbohydrates in the gut, even without alcohol consumption. So this happened to Enzo whenever he ate apples or grapes. He was our little drunk kid. And he used to fall around. He would giggle or laugh uncontrollably, sometimes hysterically. And once the kind of hangover hit, oh boy, it wasn't pretty. That child was distressed. He was, oh, it was so bad. So eliminated grapes and apples, which meant that we also then had to be careful about what juice we gave him, because most juices have apple or grape in it. So that's always been a fun exercise for me to go through. Strawberries and butternut, oh, good Lord. behavior becomes manic and distressed, like you just can't self-regulate. Someone mentioned that strawberries and butter, I think it was Jenny actually, mentioned that strawberries and butternut have a high level of pesticides. So we stay away from strawberries and butternuts, and actually have stayed away from most berries, which is sad. I mean, it's not an expense I need with everything else, but he really did love strawberries. But oh, word, the after effects were just not okay. Some lessons we've learned, some from some experts and some through some hard lessons, or just going through it. Only macadamia nuts. It's the nut to be the least to spark an allergic reaction. That makes sense. We started introducing other nuts probably about 2-3 years ago, and he hasn't had a bad reaction. But I do tend to just buy him macadamia nuts, salted, and they are delicious. But yeah, he does have other nuts, but that's the one that will will cause less irritation or an allergic reaction. Flour, we've used almond flour as much as possible. It's probably the one that's going to give you the best consistency I've found when I'm baking for him. Recently, I started using chickpea flour. Chickpeas not allowed on SED, and that we didn't have any negative effects with. We did have to pull everything back when we went on the antibiotics, and we had some massive behavior regression. So I've pulled that back, and we're going to start introducing stuff now that we're as far away from the antibiotics as possible. So chickpea flour, I found not the best consistency, but at least you're getting some kind of substance in there. Organic meat. I've mentioned that Enzo is quite sensitive, which as a nonverbal kid is really a blessing for us. So we know when something has entered his system and it's just not working for him. Before COVID, we used to get our meat bought in bulk from Farmer Angus, straight from the farm. Great meat. My husband went and he visited the farm, saw how, they do what they do. Very impressive. He was very impressed. I think, if I'm not mistaken, all the eggs from the farm are owned, or that part of it is now owned by the farm workers. So they get income off that, which I thought was amazing. But then COVID hit, and they stopped supplying to people. Obviously, restaurants shut down. So we had to find another supplier, which is unfortunate, but we understood. Such went through the process. Can't go to the farm, it's COVID. So you ask your questions, ask your feed questions, ask the stuff. I mean, he's got to see a lot of the stuff in person, so he had all the questions to ask. We trusted the provider. We had a backslide on behavior, massive. And after a very difficult month, we were having this conversation we always have. Okay, so what's changed? Is it the same medicine? Is it the same antihistamine? Is it, we go through the process. Have we introduced anything? Okay, it was COVID. We were all stuck at home. But we did have a homeopath that we worked with, and the remedy she gave us was working until we had to use this meat, because we still had of the former Angus meat left. And after a month, we're having this conversation. I was like, oh my word, we changed the meat. It's the meat. And we both went, I cannot believe it took us that long to clock that was the problem. My husband proceeded to phone up Farmer Angus. He's always had, the guys at Farmer Angus, asked for any meat that they had, explained our position. They were kind enough to sell us some meat. And within 3 days, he was back to normal. No behavior issues. It is absolutely crazy. And this is why I say food is medicine, right? Anything bad going into that boy's body, it's like reject. And you know immediately that it's not working. And with this, the progression was kind of, it started slowly and then it just ramped up. So it wasn't like, oh, we gave him the meat, which normally would be like 3 days later we'll know something. It just slowly started eroding his behavior. So that's also something you have to look out for, because you go, well, that was a month ago. We're now sitting a month later with completely regressed behavior. And we're looking 3 days ahead, 4 days ahead. The last 2 weeks, what have we done different? And then it was a month. Okay, so very important. Organic veg. Oh, I tried very hard. I was ordering week on week from these providers. I was ordering from multiples. Just the volume that we needed at, it wasn't working out. Also, a lot of the veg was quite small, and we really need volume when we cook for Enzo. Doesn't help if we have food running out on Monday and the veg delivery is only on a Wednesday, so they don't have everyday delivery, which I understand, but it wasn't really working out for us. So I made could have been a stupid decision, but was a brave decision at this stage because it worked out, to start buying Woolworths veg in bulk. I felt that it could firstly meet our needs on the drop of a hat. I could trust the chain. We had a friend whose in-laws had a farm, or not a farm. It used to be a farm, I think. And Woolworths kind of rented some of the farm grounds, and there were so many rules and things they needed to abide by, which I thought was great and kind of built that trust in me with regards to what was happening with the veg. So about 2 years ago, I made the decision that we were going to start using it, and we haven't had a negative impact. Thank you. So that was a really massive win. I mean, the amount of times I've had to kind of find something, find another organic farm, it was becoming quite stressful just getting the veg, because we had, the meat sorted out at this stage. Our boy eats, and he eats a hell of a lot, so we had to make the adjustment away from organic veg. So it's been a winner. So I'm going to stop the episode here. Thank you for joining. Next week we'll go through the results, which will have lots of technical words in for me to pronounce for you guys. I'll go through like what it means for the gut. And then we'll go through Sorry, I'm just making sure I've got everything here. So, what's our routine? What's our progress been on the diet? What other things we do to protect Enzo and his sensitive system? And then I'll just pull all the lessons learned together from these two episodes. Thank you so much again for joining. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and come back for the next one where you can learn some more about uh, the joy and the healing that we got from food.